Good morning. This is another Working with Ward, and today I'm going to do something that I really have been thinking about for a while. I want to salvage these chairs. In my life, I've probably bought 3 sets of these, and they're $1,500 to $2,000 with the table. They last 5 or 6 years, and the nylon tears out, as you can see. And so I'm going to try to salvage these by buying some cedar, lining the chair with cedar, sanding it off, and making this a very comfortable and durable chair that'll last a lot longer. Okay, so the first thing, get yourself a sharp knife. I have a knife here with a replaceable razor blade. I'm just going to cut all the plastic out. Super easy. Throw that away. Okay, that's it. It's ready to start being assembled. The next step in the process that I've got the chair all cleaned up is to prepare the wood for assembly to it. So I went to the lumber yard, bought some cedar. Cedar lasts a long time. You never have to worry about it rotting out. And this is just plain old cedar fencing, and it was the least expensive material I could find. I'm going to show you how I split it, how I polish it up on one side so it doesn't snag clothing, and how I sand it a little bit to finish it up. And the end products are going to end up looking a little bit like this, and they will fit on the chair something like this all the way down with a slot of about 1/4 inch in between. It's going to look really, really good. So the first thing to do is measure the slot, or the size of the pieces you want. And this looks like approximately 22 inches would be just perfect. It would not quite cover the edges of this. So if you reach down and grab it when you're setting, your hands won't grab the wood. They'll be grabbing the metal, which is probably going to be a little bit smoother. So I'm going to prepare every piece to be 22 inches by about 2 inches wide. So I'm going to get started. First step in the process, I got my material. I've got a nice miter saw here. So I'm going to stack these things up. I'm going to get them so that end is flush with each other. And then I'm going to clamp them together. They have to be very tight. But that way, when I measure them, they'll all get cut to the exact same length. And I don't have to cut each one individually. I can cut 3 at a time. So, cool. Now sometimes I don't like to mark my wood. It just means that I have to hide the pencil or sand it out. So in this case, I want this to be 22 inches. I'm just going to score it. So scoring means that I just use a sharp object, and it leaves an impression there that I don't have to worry about that the stain may or may not cover. So get some ear protection, and I'm going to start cutting. Okay, now all my pieces are cut to length. I'm going to start splitting them in the lengthwise so I can get them into nice, not quite 2-inch pieces. So I'll get the saw set up and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. All right, so now I'm going to cut them into lengthwise strips, approximately 2 inches. So my boards are just 6 inches. So I'm going to want my fence on my saw to be set up so that it is not just, so it's barely under 2 inches because the blade takes a little bit out. So raise up the blade a little bit. to the height necessary for safety reasons, just to the height necessary to get through all the wood. Then set up the fence at just barely 2 inches. Check it on both sides so that you know your fence is nice and square. So that's how I'm going to make the slats for all of my chairs. So I'm just going to keep at it for. I want a surface to be really smooth, so it, again, doesn't snag, doesn't abrade your skin. So I'm going to set up my fence so that I can shave off just an edge of it. You could use a planer, you can use other tools, but for ease of demonstration, I'm just going to use this, and a lot of you won't have a planer or a sanding device to do it with, so this will work just fine. I'll raise the blade to the point where we'll get the whole side. Okay, let's give that a try. Nice and smooth. Very little effort going to be required to sand that. To prepare these completely, I want to round the edges. So I'm going to change the angle of my saw just a fraction. So now the blade is no longer perfectly perpendicular. It is just a couple of degrees off of perpendicular. So again, I'm going to run this same piece through, but it's going to cut it at an angle. I'm going to turn it over and cut the other side. So I'll show you what I mean. Now this board has, I doubt that you can see it on the camera, but there is a slight radius to it, and it'll be much comfortable. You'll be setting on this portion of it, not on the edges. Okay, so now we're going to start applying the materials. The one big important thing that I think is you want to start, you can start anywhere on the chair, but I want to start so that all of the pieces are parallel. And I needed a common point to reference from, so I decided that these bolts were a common point on each side. And so what I did was I took my radiused pieces, and I also wanted a space between them, so I decided that the 3/8 inch thickness that these are would be my spacer. So I just used them, used it like that, got it as parallel as I could. Then take my tape and measure it out so that the inside edge of this vertical piece is 4 inches away from the bolt. So that's a little far. So let me get it in, get it tight so it's the same on both sides. So that's 4 inches. Inches, 4 inches. Now I'm confident that all the pieces will be parallel as long as I use the spacing here the whole way up. So I also have, to make it easy, I bought self-tapping screws. So if you look at the head of that screw, it's got a little drill bit on the end of it. So it'll drill through the wood and through the metal all at one time. I don't have to tap or drill any of the holes. Now the only thing I want to do at this point is make sure that the edges are about the same exposure on each side to the metal. So somewhat flush with the metal on each side, which they are. So I'm going to put on some hearing protection because I'm going to use a hammer drill to put these in, and it's a little noisy. Measure once, again, 4, perfect. Already a nice start. So I'm going to finish this up, and then I'm going to hit it with the sander for a few seconds. And all right, so now I've got the chair fully assembled. You can see it turned out pretty nice. What I want to do though is I'm going to take my sander and I'm just going to run over all the edges and the face of it and just take any surface imperfection out of it. It probably isn't going to take me 3 or 4 minutes to do that. And then I'm going to be ready to stain, and this thing's going to be done. Okay, ready for staining now. All right, so fully assembled now. All of the cedar slats are installed. I think it's looking really good. It's really comfortable to set in. It's soft, it gives a little bit, it's got a little flex. You could actually, if you wanted it softer, you could trim these boards as I did on the surface to give them that surface appearance. You could trim the boards a little thinner and they would flex even more and maybe make it more comfortable. But now the last part of the project is I'm going to put some treatment on the wood. Cedar doesn't really need it, but it will age and color differently. So I want to put, I'm going to use Danish oil today and see what that looks like. So this is the unfinished material. Let's see what it looks like. For safety purposes, so that my skin doesn't absorb any of the oil, I'm going to wear rubber gloves. So it's not going to change the appearance greatly. You could brush this on too, and that may be more efficient. Okay, so I'm going to try it with the paintbrush and just see if it's even easier. Oh, I think I like that better. I'm getting a little more on, a little more evenly. I can get in the sides a little better. Yeah. That's a much better plan. When I'm done on this side, I'll probably flip it over and do the back side. Make sure all the edges are gotten. I'm going to finish this with a brush. I think it's the better way to do it. And when I'm done, I'll show you the finished product. voila, finished product. It looks a little more finished. It's still drying a little bit, but it's going to be a nice, comfortable color. Super chair, great project, easy to do. Probably half a day and I can redo all the chairs, and then maybe another couple hours and I'll get the top of the table done to match. So I'm pretty excited about it. Hope you liked it, and I look forward to doing some more working with Ward.